Hello, welcome to ATP Media, Accentuate the Positive Media with Karen Swain. What do our whale and dolphin brothers and sisters, how do they serve planet Earth, and how do they dovetail with who we are as ascending human consciousness? We're going to find out that and more with Hydee Tehana on ATP Media today. Stay tuned.
You got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do.
G'day, Karen Swain here, accentuating the positive on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 and 105.3 FM. And today we're going to talk Mother Nature, Mother Earth, Mother Ocean, our galactic cousins, our galactic family, the whales and the dolphins, and so much more with the wonderful Hydee Tehana. Welcome, Hydee. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Karen. Thank you so much. So pleasure to be here.
Hydee was just saying she's in Hawaii, and I think the rain has stopped. It was pouring just before we went live, and I could hear it through the microphone, but has it stopped because I can't hear it anymore? Or is it still pouring?
It's just a light sprinkle right now. So it's been kind of crazy. We've had winds and knocking down trees and going crazy, and now it's kind of like it's a little bit silent. So
Mother Nature has definitely been talking to us this year. I've never seen so many weather phenomena and it was predicted by many people last year, actually, astrologers and psychics and channels, that this year would be a big Mother Nature weather story, flooding all over the planet, flooding everywhere. But let me tell you a little bit about Hydee and what she's all about. So, oh gosh, I lost it. Here we go. Hydee Tehana. That's a Hawaii. Where's your last name from? It sounds very Hawaiian.
It's actually a Maori name from New Zealand that chose me. Yeah.
Wow.
Story in itself. Yeah.
Grew up in Southern California and worked as a firefighter paramedic for over 20 years while also becoming a therapist. She came into the world questioning everything. Sounds so much like me. Everything she was ever taught, as not much of it made sense to her. Hydee is currently an author, producer, and guide who loves to share her experiences in discovering what this earth is all about. Deeply connected to all of Mother Nature, both on land and the oceans, Hydee leads dolphin and whale retreats with Lisa Denning to assist people in expanding consciousness and to follow their bliss, to remember their true essence. She has recently released a movie called Ocean, which she co-produced with Lisa Denning, about the true life story of Joan Ocean, who, for over 40 years, has been a pioneer in bringing people to swim with wild dolphins and whales all over the world. Oh, I'm getting all teary. I was just talking with Hydee about Joan Ocean and saying that my daughter's father was the first person back in like the late 80s or early 90s. He told me about Joan Ocean because she came out here with it was Jean-Luc. What's his name?
Jean-Luc Bozzoli. Mm-hmm.
Jean-Luc
amazing
Bozzoli,
artist.
Amazing artist. Maybe we can show some of his art later on. To do some retreats. And back then, I think I was 26 years old, and I was into this. I was curious about all this stuff, but I think I was working. And anyway, Joan did some retreats here in Australia, and I didn't go. And I'm kicking myself for not going. I never got the chance to meet her. She's now in her 80s and, sort of retired from this. But let me tell you a little bit more about Hydee, because she's got a few books happening. Fire and Water, Awakening the Dragon Within, which came out in 2020. Actually, most of them came out in 2020. What If Beliefs Are Just BS? Belief systems are just BS. I love the title of that. And What If Death is a Doorway? Also came out in 2020. And What If We Are Intergalactic Intelligence? And I just want to read to you what it says about this, because I was like, let me hear about this. What's in this book? We Come from the Stars. This book goes into depth about many galactic ET civilizations, as well as other topics like time, multidimensionality, plasma physics, spaceship technology, our hearts, sacred geometry, and expanding consciousness. This is an important time in our evolution as we are being invited into the galactic community. If we choose to make the evolutionary leap in consciousness, we are not alone and never have been. And for more information about Hydee, you can see her at Hydee Tehana, spelled TEHANA.com. And obviously, if you want to check out Joan's film, I might play the trailer to Joan's film, JoanOceanFilms.com. So yeah, let's get into your story. This is an exciting. I've got a few things to show you. I'm multitasking on this show today because I'm going to show some clips. And who we got here? Kyle, hello. Joe Fox, Shirley is online. Great to see you guys. So yeah, let's go into how this all came to you, because your story reminds me so much of my daughter's story and my own. Actually, you grew up and you went into you were a paramedic and a firefighter. What happened?
Nice lead in. Thank you for just having this show. I mean, you're waking up so many people. So for me, I resonate very much with you when you talk about in some of your shows how you question everything. I feel like I came in doing the same thing, and probably your daughter too, of what is this place? How did I get here? What am I doing here? And I grew up in Southern California, and my parents were super religious. And so we actually, when my parents got divorced, my mom took us to Texas, and I lived there for 6 years or so. And I went to a church that we went 6 days a week and twice on Sundays. And religion just never made sense to me. It didn't. I mean, I can share some stories around that whole thing, but I just kept questioning, more of reality and what is this place. And then it was like, as I became a teenager, I started experimenting with all kinds of other, hallucinogenics and things like that, because that's where I found, there's the other realities. There's what I know is real. And that kind of led me back to feeling, okay, everything's going to be okay. And, somewhere in there, I had cut off my contact with my guides. And then it was kind of like, you really get sucked into this earth reality, and it's like, you've got to make money and you got to get a job and you got to, get married and have kids. I mean, of course you don't have to do all that, but that's kind of the way, things are set up in this world. And, for me, I started going down that path. And at a certain point, I think it was in my early 30s, I had my kids and I was married, and I was a captain in the fire department, and nothing made sense. And so I really started questioning everything. And, I started working on my own traumas and my own things that has happened in my life. And that led me to becoming more open, and my guides showing back up, and, just kind of diving into a whole different world and reading everything. And so things that had happened to me as a child, in kind of more the extraordinary worlds of like seeing between the veils or through the veils, or knowing that we are, part of source, or God, it's like that kind of stuff isn't really shared or talked about, that we are these amazing creator beings that have forgotten who we are. So some of those experiences, extraordinary experiences, started to make sense to me when I started to dive back into what is this world. And because it's so multi-layered, as you well know, Karen, it's like, this is a multi-dimensional place. And when I started to dive back into things, it's like the dolphins and whales showed up for me. But all of Mother Nature, I've always been very connected to the land and the ocean. And when those beings really showed up for me, it shifted me even more, because those sounds, and that's what I love about, Joan Ocean and the things that she does, bringing the dolphins and whales into more of a mainstream consciousness, going and just swimming with them, being in there. I mean, you don't even have to swim alongside them. You can just hear some of their sounds, and they're shifting our reality. They're altering our consciousness. They're activating us in ways. And, I had some experiences where that really shifted my whole life. I swam with them a few different times. In 2014, I came on one of Joan's seminars, and my life pretty much changed within a couple of years to, okay, it's time to stop doing the fire department. It's time to stop being married. It's time to move out of California. It's time, it was like, I feel like we do different completions, throughout our lives. And so, now here I am in Hawaii and leading retreats and writing books. And some of the books I had actually written when I was in the fire department, because I was around death so much. I know you've had a lot of experience talking to your mom on the other side and things like that. And so that always fascinated me, being around, somebody that had just died, and then all of a sudden feeling, oh, you're not really dead. You're right there, and we're doing CPR on your body right now, and having those conversations that you're not really dead. You're just not in your body anymore,
Yes, darling one, I do know. Oh, you're up on me. It's nice to talk to somebody who knows who they're talking to. Most people come on the show, they have no idea who they're talking to, but it's nice that you've actually listened to some of my story. And,
you've got great stories. How you talk about your mom, and that's why I think, gosh, we would not grieve so much if we just would start talking to, them. They're just in a different dimensional space, a different frequency, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I wonder if the whales and the dolphins can see through their perceptual experience spirit, like I wonder how they perceive death. I'm sure they don't perceive it. There's a lot of things on the internet that love to talk about how animals grieve and animals get upset with death. And I wonder about that, like I suppose, you could talk to the animals, but for me, I don't think they do get as upset about death as we do, because they do see past the one dimension. They do see into other dimensions. Have you had any experience with that, with the whales and the dolphins?
I would say that for sure. I've had many different experiences where and even just like, you have your pets, your cats and your dogs and things like that. And when they pass, I just feel like how's the best way to say it? It's like they just let go. They know that it's okay, that their consciousness continues on. And being a lot of times when I've been around my dogs, when they've passed, it's like they'll go through the process of letting go of their body and just accepting what is and going back. Sometimes it feels like, I had one dog that felt like he went back on our spaceship and, was now, my co-pilot on that ship. And I've had another dog who felt like he went right back to source. I've also had it where, like, my parents both passed in 2019, my dad and my stepmom, and both of them, I could hear them right away. As soon as my dad passed, he was like, hey, I'm out of here, and then he was like flying and so happy, so excited, and flying over the water and just free of his body. He'd been sick for like 5 years. And, I still have a different experience with them. They come in and out, and a lot of times they're just hilarious, the things that they say. But yeah, I don't know. For me, it was like death. I had this experience actually when I was about 10 years old, and I was, I think I was like in 5th grade, and I had gotten a pass to go to the bathroom. And on my way to the bathroom, I was walking up this stairway, and all of a sudden I felt like a portal open up. And what I saw when I looked to my left was, on this wall was like all these different scenes of me in my life, and, and of all different ages. And I was, I sat with that. And the thought, Karen, that it was in my mind was, oh my gosh, there was an excitement, like, I can't wait to die, because look at all that I get to experience in this lifetime, and it was just, I sat with that for many, many, many years before I really kind of integrated that more of, wow, there's nothing to be afraid of. It's
Yeah.
just a stepping out of the body. And I feel like the dolphins and whales, they do that very consciously. The dolphins, I know, especially when I mean, here in Hawaii, we have many different types of dolphins, but in particular, like the bottlenose allow themselves to be, put in captivity and they'll stay there. But there's other dolphins, like say the Hawaiian spinner dolphins, they do not want to be in captivity. So if they
Right.
get put in there, they immediately close their blowhole and will sink to the bottom and die. And so
Wow.
they are so conscious of every breath they take, everything they're doing here. I mean, I saw them yesterday at the beach, and you can just feel their presence, a huge pod, and just the energy that they hold and the sounds. I was just getting in the ocean and I could just hear their sounds, and you can feel that, all the way through your whole body. Same with the whales. I mean, they're just, to me, there are our brothers and sisters of the ocean, just reminding us who we are, whether they're, from the Sirius B or the Pleiades, or, there's different places people talk about where they're from, but they're amazing, and to me, they go up and on the ships, they come back on the ships. And sometimes you'll see like brand new dolphins that have no markings on them. And I think, oh, you just came off the ship, so, and I think, oh my gosh, they're in different bodies, so super powerful. Yeah. So I definitely think they choose, and they don't have that connection to their body. And I feel like they're very multidimensional. So they're so aware of all the other places where
Absolutely.
they're existing. Like us humans, we're more, no, I just exist here. But it's like, no, we exist
Yeah.
in so many realities.
We're all over. Absolutely. I so agree with you. Because a lot of people say that they don't want to be caught and put in, captured and stuff like that. But an intelligent being, like dolphins' brains are so much larger than human brains. If an intelligent being is here, that they know they have a choice. And just like you said, the ones that are in captivity and can be used for shows or healing or whatever they're used for, they are choosing to be there, and they know they have a choice that if I don't want to be here, I'm out of here. I just leave and go somewhere else, because I know that this body isn't my only experience. And yeah, as you say, there are stories of whales and dolphins who do get captured and they go, nope, and they just leave, or they kill their owners, like they like anyway.
The trainers, yeah, exactly.
The trainers, thank you. I'm having trouble talking today.
No, but that's so true, because they're so conscious. But what I realize, because so many of us don't want to see animals in captivity, but it's like what I see, happening in zoos, or even I used to take my kids to SeaWorld down in San Diego when they were little, and I've always just loved all that. But what I realize is they're activating us. They are literally sonaring us, because I can still remember walking by a manatee and the activation that took place of this manatee, and a bottlenose that completely just activated me to the point where I was like, I have to swim with dolphins. I have to swim with dolphins now. Like, it was those kinds of things. And I realized, wow, they are literally doing humanity a favor and this whole planet by, they're zapping us, certain people, and at certain points in time, and that's what I think is the bigger picture that we don't necessarily understand, is they choose every single thing that they do.
Yes. I had an experience with the dolphin years ago when I first met my daughter's father. So I'm like, again, about 26. And we went on a bit of a road trip, camping and staying in hotels, just got in the car and left, just like, let's just go up the coast. And we got to Byron Bay. We were swimming at Watergoes. I don't know if you've never been out here, but people in Australia know. So Watergoes is the easternmost point. There's a big lighthouse on the point of Australia, and apparently it's on a ley line. Anyway, we were swimming there, and there were dolphins in the water with us, and I had goggles on, and this dolphin went past me in a wave, and I was looking at it, and it was coming back out from the beach, and it was coming straight at me at the speed of like a car, and I was freaking out because I didn't know what I would do. Like, was it going to bash into me? And it got within a foot of me, and then just like moved, like just turned so quickly and looked at me with one eye. And I looked into the eye of this dolphin, and I just saw that intelligence, and I went, oh my God, you did that to me. Like, you did that purposely to me to freak me out, but also to sort of show me, like, gotcha, like I scared you, sort of thing. Yeah, that was an amazing experience. God, that was so many years ago. But
yeah, that's amazing that you had that, because I mean, that's what a gift that they do for us, and to have that kind of experience. Because I know sometimes we'll go and we'll swim with the dolphins and or the whales, and it's like some days you get out and you're just zapped, and other days you
right.
get out and you have so much energy. So it's so fascinating the way that they're healing us, activating us, rewiring us. They'll play different sounds, and do different sonars to basically like reconfigure ourselves. Because that's what I realize is, we come in with so many programs. Well, we don't come in with, but we get given so many belief systems, right? And limiting programs. And it's like, okay, do we want to keep that, or do we want to really expand our consciousness and go, okay, what else is out there? Because they're just incredible beings. I mean, they're telepathic. There's times when we're with them in the ocean, and all of a sudden they'll make a certain sound, and you could be looking at them, looking down at them, or right there with them, and all of a sudden they disappear, and you're like, where did you go? But you could feel them, and you know that they're still right there. So to me, it's just fascinating. They're masters of frequency, masters of sound, and I feel like that's another thing that we're really learning to do here is don't get sucked into the distraction. How do we master the frequencies of whatever's going around in our world? Because they're showing us that's how you go into these higher frequencies with the other galactic beings, right? If our
Yeah.
thoughts aren't, if we can't control our thoughts, it's like I can't imagine all the things that we would manifest just by the different thoughts that we have, if that makes sense, if we're not controlling everything we're doing and thinking.
Oh, absolutely. I was telling Heidi before that, my daughter's father told me about Joan Ocean way back in the late 80s or early 90s. It might have been late 80s when she came out to Australia for the first and maybe only time. Do you know if she ever came back?
I think she just, from what I
Just the
understand,
once?
well, maybe just the once, but I'm not sure. I know she came out there for a few workshops because she talked about those.
Yeah. And and Joan was talking about intergalactic multidimensionality then, but in those days when I was so young, I didn't quite understand it all. I was curious, I was fascinated, but I was also distracted by paying the rent and everything. But my ex-husband and his sister were really into it, and it was his sister that told me about the Seth books way back in my 20s. And
Wow.
once I started reading those, I was like, I was done. When I say done, I was like off and running down the rabbit hole, so to speak, and couldn't get enough of this conversation and
Oh, I
the
love it.
intelligence. But they did not. And, we were talking about before we went live, how many star seeds and healers and wanderers are here on the planet that sort of dip their toe into the river of expanding consciousness and then pull it out because life just distracts them, and they get caught up with the money game and the drama here on planet Earth, and they just forget.
Right.
And both of them are like that. Both of them really didn't follow that river, that stream. They didn't go down it, whereas I dipped my toe in and then dived full in, and look what I'm doing
Same.
now. 40 years later, I'm still having this conversation, and we're now talking to hundreds of
Right.
thousands of people each live show, which is so fantastic, a part of the expansion of consciousness. So
You're doing the world a huge service.
well, we all are, but what have you seen amongst people in Hawaii? Are there many people waking up? How are the whales and dolphins helping us stay focused on that understanding that we are multidimensional, we are energetic beings, that we do have the ability to change our belief systems, our BS. I love it, belief systems. And change our world, both our personal world and this world collectively.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many different levels that you probably see as well, like in Australia, that we're all waking up at different points in time. And I think it's like our soul, is obviously in control of the timing of all those things. Because I often wonder too, like you said, was your ex-husband and sister, a sister, they didn't deep dive like you did after reading those Seth books. And I often wonder too, because I did the same thing after reading having different experiences. I started diving in and wanting to know more and more and more and more, questioning.
Yeah.
And, there's so many people out there that just don't do that. There are more people. I know I've helped out on Joan Ocean's retreats. Lisa Denning and we actually do our own retreats now and take people to swim with the dolphins and whales. And there's a noticeable shift. I mean, we usually do about like 5-day retreats, 5 to 7 day retreats. And usually by midweek, people have shifted into a place of, instead of worrying about all the distraction in the world and what's happening here and what's going on in the system and they all of a sudden have like this radiance that starts to come through them and this joy that just starts to come through them. And I feel like the more of us that can be in that place of joy and love and peace and, all those higher dimensional ways of being, it'll change the world faster. And I always think of that quote. You probably know Abraham Hicks, I'm sure, and many of your listeners do as well. Like, I don't know if you remember that quote that she says of, just one person in alignment with the energy stream, with source, is more powerful than a million that are not. And it always gave me such hope. And then I think she went on to say, like, when 2 or more are in alignment with energy source, like, look out, and that's what your show's doing, and more of us, because I feel like this is just a wave of awakening, and that's what's happening right now. So it is happening, but I feel like there's different densities of some people. They don't want to wake up and they don't want to shift, and that's okay, because they want to go and continue the 3-dimensional duality experience, because some people get addicted to the drama and the different things. And there's those of us that are like, nope, I don't want any more of this. There's other ways to be. So for me, it's like trying to, come back into non-judgment, and how can I hold that for people that don't want to change and don't want to shift, and, and be okay with it, and be more like the dolphins and whales or the masters and people like that just allow everybody their own experience,
Our joy is our superpower. Absolutely. I often quote that. One person connected to the stream of consciousness, the stream of pure positive energy, is more influential than a million who are not. We don't understand that just that joy that we experience, that internal happiness, joy, love, compassion, ecstasy, bliss, whatever you want to call it, is our superpower. And from that frequency, we have the power of influence that no anger will ever have. You can have hundreds of people marching, in the streets, angry and pushing against what they don't want to happen in the world, but there's no power there. The power is in the joy. And I think that the whales and dolphins, really remind us of that. I can hear that rain. It's still raining. It's pouring.
It's starting to
pouring
rain
in Hawaii. They really remind us of that joy, and that's their message to us. Your joy is your superpower. Your joy is your instant manifestation technique. The more joy, the higher the frequency, the more powerful you are to manifest that which you desire.
You're making my whole body like buzz, because I can feel it. Like you just nailed it. That's exactly it. Because then it's like we're broadcasting out those fields of joy, and then that's what we're receiving back from the field, So you nailed it. My whole body's buzzing. I love it.
Let's talk about the beautiful Joan Ocean. What a pioneer. What an amazing pioneer. I wanted to play the trailer. It's 5 minutes of her speaking, and hopefully we can speak over her and the trailer as well.
Great.
How did you meet? You came out to do I met
Joan Ocean, actually. A book of hers fell out of a bookshelf in a bookstore. Should I let this play, or you said go ahead and keep talking?
Yeah, keep talking. I think she comes in a minute, but you can keep talking. Yeah.
Great dolphin sonar sounds in the background here with Lisa Denning's footage. Yeah, so I was at a bookstore and all of a
time
sudden,
in our history when
here, I'll let her talk in here.
Okay,
we were meant to
we'll let Joan talk.
evolve. People on Earth were meant to evolve, keep growing, keep learning, keep expanding, becoming more and more conscious. They came here to assist in raising the consciousness of humans on Earth, to upgrade it. But I still didn't know how to swim, so I was just sitting on the deck. And while I was sitting there, one of the bottlenose came right over next to me, looking up at me, eye to eye, and I was mesmerized. I don't know what happened, but I said, I'm going in. And so I looked around, I found a snorkel mast and put that on, and then I lowered myself in, holding tight to the deck so I wouldn't sink because it was deep. And the dolphin stayed right next to me.
Somehow the dolphin came and it was making, before the sunrise, it was making noise under the, so it was all those clicking, those sounds, the noise. And by the time I get up, go up and see the dolphin was swimming away. And that happened maybe for 5-7 days, every morning. And then that's when my painting changed and I started to paint crystal underwater with some life form and a bit of a dolphin.
But these sounds are so transformative. They go through your body. You're actually shaking. It's like an electric shock, but a good one, really wonderful. And you can feel the changes occurring and the whale's presence right there. And they know what they're doing. They are healing every one of us, and they're activating our DNA. They're waking us up. The more we are a mirror of universal oneness, the more we draw others to enter the collective consciousness of all that is with us, to join us. And that's what we're learning, to be more and more like the dolphins and the whales that express love to everything. They don't make judgments. They don't choose good and bad, any of that. And the whales and dolphins, when they sonar us with their ultrasound, they see all that. They are picking up our frequencies, our vibrations. They know everything about us. They know more about us than we know about ourselves.
I think the future is very beautiful. We have a beautiful future if you can let go. You just have to let go of the old ways, or open up to a new way and co-create with everything, like the dolphin, the clouds, the birds, the crystal, the flowers, and there is other beings in there, magic beings also.
Everything is communicating with us now because they're all being affected by this higher consciousness. And the thing is, are we listening? For me, it's all about feelings. I just feel them so close. I feel totally at peace. I feel that my whole life has changed because of it. Now, for me, it's just about the connection. It's about the love we share with each other and how that makes both of us equally so happy and joyful and just full of love. We both feel it. The whale receives it from me and I receive it from the whale. Yeah. Because dolphins and whales are very highly evolved and they're being acknowledged for that more and more now. And it's true. I mean, when they look into your eye and you see that wisdom coming right at you, you just remember. You remember who you are and you remember why you're here and you're so happy.
pilot whales.
Beautiful. Just beautiful.
Mhm.
So that's the trailer to the movie
Mhm.
that you and Lisa produced about Joan Ocean.
Yes.
Makes me so teary. I just want to
Oh my
cry.
gosh. Yeah. I mean, Joan is she's incredible. The experiences that she's had. I mean, she was grew up on the East Coast, and she talks about also being a walk-in, I think, when she was maybe like 10 years
Wow.
old.
Really?
And how, yeah, she got really sick, was in the hospital, was a higher galactic being that came in, had a soul agreement, was in a wheelchair for a while the change was going through. And then it was like she started working, as a psychologist or therapist, like in social work and stuff like that for a while, helping children and things like that. And she started working with a group called the Nine. You may be familiar with the Nine from Sirius B, a group of beings. And so she started working with them, and they were like telling her, you have a bigger part in this world. You need to step outside the system and start your work doing other things, which I feel like that's what's happening to most of us right now with life not making sense, being in the unknown. It's like, me working in the fire department, I was asked to step outside the system. What you're doing is outside the system, and so that's what Joan started to do was, okay, well, how do I work outside the system? And so she started, figuring it out. And then she had this massive experience with a gray whale when she was up in Canada, and this gray whale, she didn't even know how to swim, like rolled up on the shore and just started beaming light and love at her. She said to the point where she was just so overwhelmed by so much love from this whale. And she said all of a sudden she had that thought like, oh my gosh, if I'm going to disappear, there's so much light happening right now, I'm going to disappear if this doesn't stop. And that whale heard the message and immediately stopped sending that love and rolled back into the ocean. And she said that was a turning point for her because she realized, wait a second, they're telepathic. They just, activated her on her mission. She moved to Hawaii. She started swimming with the Hawaiian spinner dolphins, who nobody had been swimming with wild dolphins. And this was back, I think, in the late 70s, early 80s. And and then it's like the dolphins started saying, bring people to us, and it was, that was her progress. I mean, and so she talks a lot about that kind of thing in the film, along with all the different messages that the dolphins and whales share about how we create reality with our imagination, how our limiting beliefs are what, hold us back, that we are, like you talked about with the joy and the radiating those kinds of things. So it's such a multi-dimensional film, and Lisa and I are really honored to put it together, because Lisa's also a photographer, and been working with Joan for like the last 25 years. So she literally had so much footage of Joan and the whales and the dolphins and the different trips they've done. And then it worked out perfectly to have Jean-Luc Bozzoli with all of his art and so multi-dimensional art that he does, and videos that he's also done. He's done some movies. So yeah, it was really a pleasure to put it together, because it really gives people that experience that if you can't go and get in the ocean, you can hear all those messages, hear the sounds of the dolphins and whales, and it's just incredible. So we're really ecstatic actually and so is Joan and Jean-Luc, to put it out, because the consciousness of the dolphins and whales can go out worldwide, and it's like shows like allowing me to come on and share, so that it can affect more people, and we can really have like this wave of light shift the energy of the planet. So it's an honor. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, that was actually a question that I had thought about. I wanted to ask you, like, if people aren't near the ocean and they can't go dive in the ocean and talk to the whales and the dolphins, how does the whales and the dolphins affect them? But yeah, you don't necessarily have to be in the ocean with them, looking at them, hearing them. You can tune into their frequencies sitting on your couch, watching the movie really helps tune into their frequency and tune into their message, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's when Joan Ocean and Jean-Luc watched the movie for the first time, we were showing them what we had done. Joan just started, tearing up, and she was like, oh my gosh, this fulfills my mission, to get this information out there. Because she has 2 books, and she's writing her 3rd book all about the whales and their consciousness. But she was like, this feels like complete, like full circle, because now people can sit on their couch, watch, and be with them and immersed in those sounds and things like that. So, yeah, is this a bottlenose that you have back there? That is this John Luke's, or
no, it's
perhaps?
I'd have to take us off to show. There's a couple of questions here from the audience. Joe actually asks, Hydee is a great name and spelling. Where are you originally from? Yeah, he wants to know where you're originally from.
So my father is Cuban, and so that's where the spelling comes from. It was actually that when they named me and they spelled it, it was Haydee, so Hydee. But my mother's side was from Iowa, so all my parents were calling me Hydee, so they dropped the A, and so I ended up with Hydee. So yeah, but he came over when Castro was taking over and those kinds of things. So that's where I'm originally. That's my background is English, Irish, and then the Spanish and Cuban. So, but I know you had mentioned a little bit before when we talked just about Tehana. Tehana actually, when I had been married for like 23 years, and my last name was Dullum, and I was like, I kept trying to go, okay, what's my name? And I kept going, Heidi's my name, but and actually my middle name is Karen. So that's funny.
There you go.
Because I remember listening to you and you talking about the Ka, and the Egyptian part of that whole thing. Because isn't that the soul body, I think, is the Ka, or maybe that's the Ba.
The Ka body. Yeah.
Ka body.
That's
okay.
what the Egyptians called the soul, the Ka,
Okay.
the Ka body. That part of our consciousness that incarnates into physical lives, different lives. So there's a part that stays there, but there's a part of our consciousness that's diving in and out of lives, I suppose, here on Earth and other places as well. So they call that the Ka body.
Okay.
Yeah, the soul, not the astral body, not the etheric body. It's basically the name for the show. But anyway, go on. Yeah, and so.
So yeah, when I got divorced, I was trying to figure out, do I go back to Garcia or do I keep Dullum? And nothing just resonated. I just knew that Hydee resonated. And so for a couple years, I went around saying, what's my last name? Because something's not right. And I even dropped the name Karen, and I made my middle name Hathor because I don't know. I love these interdimensional beings and I work with them. They're very, maybe you've worked with them as well, that they come from, they've worked with the Egyptians and things like that, but they work with sound. And I see them like come in these Nautilus ships, and they how they raise and lower their frequencies. But so I made my middle name Hathor. And then for a long time, I was like, what's my last name? And I would go around saying, maybe it's Hydee Tree, or maybe it's Hydee Ocean, or Hydee, Wall, or I'd go around just, annoying my kids about all these names. And then one day, Lisa and I were actually traveling in New Zealand, and I was going around and I saw all these different groups of Maoris. And I was so moved by the indigenous culture of the Maori people, and just felt such a connection to them and hearing them and their chants and things like that, that I was really taken by the different names as we drove up. We were going to the very north tip of the North Island. We felt very drawn to go there because that's apparently where the Maori people see themselves, where they jump off out of this world and into another world, and where they come in from. And so we were going up that route, and all of a sudden I saw the name Tehana, and I was like, Hydee Tehana. And both Lisa and I looked at each other like, wait a second, I think you got it, and so we just then I was like, well, what does it even mean? And so then I looked it up, and it means to shine or to radiate. And I thought, oh my gosh, beautiful. That's really amazing, because I went from dull to like Dullum to this, Tehana. So I'm very honored. I have a very high respect for the Maori people. So
absolutely, it's a really strong society and culture. Yeah.
My gosh,
when my father was actually from New Zealand, and I've spent a bit of time there, and I mean, their culture is really present in New Zealand. Unlike the original people of Australia, their culture is not that present where you move around. Like even their newsreaders say Maori word before they, like everyone, before they read the news. Like, yeah, it's a very powerful culture. But there's a question here from Indigo about sharks that she'd like to pose to you. I've seen quite a bit of about shark attacks and whale attacks increasing recently. Do you think it's to create fear and keep us out of the ocean, or is there something to it? Good question.
That's a great question, because many people ask that, especially when they come on our retreats, or when I was working with Joan and doing some of her retreats, is, what about sharks? I think there is something to keep us out of the oceans. There's so much going on in the oceans that we have no idea about. And I know for myself, like with the sharks, even, Jaws came out right back in the 70s. And I thought, oh my gosh, look at how that still is in the collective consciousness of humanity, and we get some people that are just super afraid of sharks. What I've found is, I don't know, I have a deep love for sharks. I always have for some reason. And they're so scared of us. I mean, so many sharks around here, they run and hide under the reefs and things like that. There's a consciousness that I feel like they have an ancient, they're like ancient ancestors. And I know here in Hawaii, a lot of Hawaiians talk about how the sharks are actually their amakua. It's like their guardian spirit, and you might have an amakua of, say, a hawk or a turtle or different things. But there's a lot of people here that have the shark amakua, that guardian protector spirit. And when I started to learn more about how do they work with the sharks, and how did they work with the sharks, and the Hawaiians revere sharks. There's actually stories of, like, I remember there's a book that I read, and it was this one Hawaiian woman, and she knew of this tiger shark out in this bay, and she would chant, and the tiger shark would come out of its den, and then they would go and swim together, and she would grab his dorsal fin, and they would go for rides. And if the tiger shark didn't hear her, she would dive down, and the next thing it was like I don't know, there's so much of a feeling like they're almost like dogs to me, because they're so curious, and they're always like, hey, what are you doing? And they're reading the electrical impulses of us. They're so aware electrically. So that's what they're feeling, is this, and that's what they're doing out there, is they're cleaning up the oceans and taking care of the oceans. But I love the way the Hawaiians really revered the sharks, because they also worked with them to help them fish. And so the sharks would help move the fish towards the boats, and then they would cast their nets, and then they would give the sharks a certain amount of fish. And so there's so much of that out there. So I think there's something to it that the sharks are also reminding us at a deeper level, because when we've gone out there too, we've been out there with the whales, and the sharks sometimes will eat the scraps that the whales leave, especially the pilot whales. And the sharks are just more curious. They'll come around. And what I find, just like with anything, if you get in your heart space and you open your heart and you make your energy big, and you're sending energy to a person, to an animal, whatever it is, they receive that. It's just like you look at a dog, and if you're putting out fear, that fear comes back to you with a dog, usually barking and irritated, versus those that really love the dog. There's a similarity between the dogs and sharks on how they interact with that. And I just feel like most of nature is like that. They're reflecting back our beliefs and our energy that we're feeling. So the more we can get in our heart space,
Right.
I mean, the sharks they just come around, and they're just like, hey, what are you guys doing? So,
what are you doing?
Hopefully that answered the question, my long-winded answer.
Yeah, Indigo says fascinating. Absolutely. Look, when you put out fear, it comes back to you. It's not necessarily just through Mother Nature. It comes back to you. Like what you put out comes back. It's a boomerang.
For
That's
sure.
what the original people would say. What you put out comes back. Like, what do you want? Put it out. Stuff. Start.
It's very true.
Manifest.
It's very true. I mean, I think too, like with storms and things like that, I'm always very curious, because of humanity's negative thought forms and all that we've created on the different astral levels. Like, wow, how do we, continue to transmute that? And I feel like a lot of us are here doing that and transmuting a lot of that energy. That's why it's so important for us to really, pay attention and control our thoughts, and who are we, and really question. Like, I love that you came in questioning, Karen. It's just, It's an interesting, I don't know if you've, like, I had this experience. I don't mean to cut you off, and but I had this experience. It's just reminding me, and about, for many years I heard in my head, you're in a video game, you're in a game, you're in a video game. And I remember thinking, okay, so what? I'm in a game, I'm in a video game. What does that even mean? And I just kept holding that. And you probably get those questions too, or different things where your guides are leading you on different ways. And then it's like you have these different experiences. And one time I was, I think it was probably 3 years ago now. And nobody would ever say anything. Like I threw that out there to a few people, and they're like, oh, I don't know what that means. It's like, okay, I'm in a video game. Well, one time about 3 years ago, then they showed me what it meant. And my dog had actually woken me up in the middle of the night. I went outside, and it was during an eclipse. And it was, I don't know, 11, 12 at night. And I sat there, and the clouds had parted. I ended up watching the whole eclipse. And a friend of mine was staying with us, and we were going to go early to the volcano because we're about an hour north of the active volcano here on the Big Island. Anyway, we go and we drive down there, and literally, I mean, it's a big caldera where the lava is down in there, and we could see ships, pointing down in there, like these cloud ships, and you could see they're like putting new codes in the earth and working with the different energies there. And we stayed there for a while watching that. And then the sun came up, and we decided to go for a hike along one of the old lava flows. And so as we were cruising along the old lava flow, something drew my attention, and I went to one of the lookouts. And when I got to the lookout, Karen, I put my hands there, and it was like all of reality, like shuddered in front of me, like just wobbled. And I could literally see reality take shape in front of me. And this is me putting words to it, but it was like, how you get things, and it's just, sometimes there's just no words to put it to. So this is me putting words after the fact, but it was like literally the trees, the lava, everything that I expected to be there showed up. And I was, all of a sudden I knew, like, that's what they mean. We're in a video game. And then my friend, she walked over too, and I hadn't said anything. I think my mouth was still on the floor, and she came over, had the same experience. And I looked at her, and I could tell she had seen the same thing, almost to the point like where we got there before reality had created itself. It's like we got there, and there's the green screen, and we literally were creating it with what we expected to see. And both of us sat there with this like, but in my mind, I knew all of a sudden that's what the Matrix movies are about. That's what the Truman Show's about. That's what Total Recall is about. Like all these movies, The Game with Michael Douglas. It was like all of these things. And then it happened to us again in a waterfall. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're showing us we're in a hologram, which is what the dolphins and whales are always saying. Like everything's malleable. You can go back and change the past. You can change the future. So.
And Diego says like an episode of Rick and Morty, lol. I actually don't know what Rick and Morty is, but I just want to do a station break and remind people that you're listening to Accentuate the Positive Media Awakening Consciousness with Karen Swain. We are streaming syndicated radio on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 and 105.3 FM all over the United States and Canada through syndicated radio. And we're also streaming on YouTube and Facebook and Twitch and Rumble and all sorts of places. And my guest today is Hydee Tehana. We're talking galactic consciousness, whale and dolphin consciousness. It's really all just one consciousness with different intentions, but spiritual teachers, ascended masters, our galactic brothers and sisters, the whales and the dolphins, they're all teaching humanity to expand your awareness and to understand you are the creators of your reality, which all the masters who came to this planet, the Buddhas and the Jesuses, were teaching us as well, right? Who do you want your teacher to be? A dolphin? Jesus, yourself.
Right? They're all saying the same thing.
They're all saying the same thing. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, what did Ruby say here about the sharks? I wanted to talk about sharks. Sharks had an old curse on them, which is being cleared now. Yeah. What do you think about that? What do you think about that statement, Hydee? Do you think they had
I
a
feel
curse
I
on them?
feel possibly. I mean, I feel like there's so much in the shaman world and all the different kinds of things that we've put curses on each other and everything, right? So it wouldn't surprise me at all that there's, something coming on. But it also feels like it's time for us to know who they really are and what they're really
Absolutely.
doing. So I feel like we're all discovering that and remembering that. So
Well, those Hollywood movies, the Jaws movies, were all a part of that, curse, I suppose you could call it, or conditioning that don't get in because so many people say about Australians, I'm sure they say it about Hawaiians too, oh, and there are all those sharks there. I don't want to go down to Australia and swim in the beautiful ocean because I'll be bitten or eaten by a shark. There's that sort of curse there. But my daughter, who is in the ocean all the time, was bitten by a shark about 4 years ago. She's an animal activist, and the thing that happened to her is, as they were she was on an island in northern Queensland, and they had to helicopter her to hospital. They had to take her off the island and put her in the ambulance on the mainland. And they got off the helicopter with all the paramedics, and they're wheeling her, on the gurney thing, whatever it's called, to the ambulance. Can't find my words today. And all the press are there. I mean, this is the thing. Anyone gets bitten by a shark, and this goes back to your question, is it conditioning? Whenever there's a shark bite in Australia, which is few and far between, every mainstream news media wants to talk about it and terrible, terrible, terrible. So they're all there with the cameras and the press, another shark bite. And she sits up in the gurney and she says, I still love sharks. Sharks are beautiful.
good for her. Oh, yay.
This is after she's been bitten by a shark, which went viral across the world. Like it just went, and she was made into so many memes, but it's all a part of, even when you get bitten by a shark and you've got a nice big scar on your leg to show for it, you can still love them.
Oh, I love that.
Since then she's been a part of a group called Bite Club, which was initially started for people bitten by sharks, and it did like any animal attacked by any animal and their experience. And so many of the people in Bite Club, instead of having the trauma of what happened, talk about the beauty of what happened and how it changed their lives. And there's some amazing people in Australia who have lost legs from sharks and stuff like that are the most amazing personal growth speakers and inspirational speakers, and talk about, if it hadn't been for this shark taking my leg, I would never have taken that path, and talking to millions of people across the planet about and so everything happens for a reason, right? I mean, the media can try and scare us and Jaws can try and scare us, but everything happens for a reason. Have you seen any of that?
I would agree that. I totally agree with that. I mean, and it makes me think, do they have shark medicine? It's like sometimes you get bit by a black widow or something, and it's like, okay, well, you're incorporating that medicine within your body too. So it feels like it's so multi-layered, because like you said, it changes people's lives. I know here in Hawaii, there's a gal like Ocean Ramsey's, and you can go to Oahu and swim, just right there off the boat with at a drop off, and there's many different sharks, and you just feel all of their energy as they're swimming around, and they're really attracted to your GoPros and things like that. But it gives you a different perspective, because otherwise it's like, cage diving with the sharks and things like that. And, there's many people out there swimming, with the great whites and the tiger sharks and things like that. And it really comes across as, what are you putting out there? It's just, to me, it's just like being around a bear or, a bobcat or something like that. Like, they feel us, and how do we get back into that oneness and that, because, they're just, to me, they're God having an experience as a different, being, an elephant or and it's whether you're galactic or anything, like, we're just, it's powerful in so many ways. So
the oceans are full of the most incredible creatures. I mean, the way, just incredible. I mean, what's his name? James Cameron.
Oh, right.
Avatar was inspired by his underwater dives. And I remember taking my daughter to see Avatar when it first came out. She was still a kid. And the two of us with our jaws open at the end of the movie, and we looked at each other and said, I want to see it all over again. I want to sit through it all over again. Just so mesmerizing. Some of the creatures, I just think about, Spirit or the Galactic sitting on a drawboard designing creatures. And when you look into our oceans and you see the variety of creatures in the ocean, just the creativity, it's incredible. It's incredible.
Absolutely.
You're
reminding me too, because we just came back from doing a few weeks in Bimini. We took a couple groups out there to swim with the spotted dolphins out there, and there's a huge like Atlantean energy that's out there in that island. They say that island is surrounded by lots of pyramids, that there's ancient temples there from the Atlantean civilization, and that's where you came to basically remember what you're doing here, where you came to be healed. There's lots of those kinds of things that are happening. And it just makes me, when you're there, and even here in Hawaii or wherever it is, there's so much going on under the ocean. And there's also other civilizations going on under the ocean. I mean, you can look at Aquaman and see the different things that Hollywood's putting out there, but you can feel that there's different things. There's sometimes we'll feel plasma ships under the water. I know when I first was with Joan Ocean and I had come on one of her retreats back in 2014, the humpback whales were around and we had been feeling all the different energies, and we found this huge pod of spinner dolphins, and we were swimming in this bay, and there was just hundreds in the group of us, maybe 20 of us. We were all swimming around, and I was a pretty good diver, so I would dive down and swim with the dolphins and things. And at a certain point, we had been in there for a few hours, and I was just like, I'm tired. And so I was just kind of floating at the top, and all of a sudden I had these 3 dolphins. They like surfaced right next to me, and one of them looked me like, right in the eye. And there's no words, but what I heard back from that dolphin is dive down with us. And I said back to the dolphin in my head, I'm tired. And the dolphin starts to dive, and the 3 dolphins, and the dolphin says, dive down with us. And I say again, I'm really tired. I'm just going to stay here. And then as he keeps going right in front of me, dive down with us. And I wasn't thinking nothing. I inverted, and I'm a pretty good free diver. I just started diving down and diving down and diving down. And so they're a little bit ahead of me, and I'm going down there and I'm swimming with them. And at a certain point I go, okay, I need to breathe. And so I say to the dolphin, I'm going back up. And the dolphin looks at me, that same dolphin that told me to dive down looks at me and says, dive down deeper. And I usually don't tell this story. It's so funny. But I ended up diving down deeper. And Karen, it's like I ended up going down further. And what I was seeing was these dolphins just going around in like this spiral, in this motion, and just around and around and around. And it's like, I'm putting words to this again, but the feeling I have was just this like bliss, this peace, this unconditional love of everything. And it was, it's that feeling I feel like, I love those bottlenose, of being like you're one with them. And what I realized, and talking to Joan about it, was there was a spaceship down there. There was a plasma ship down there, and I had entered that ship with those dolphins who were holding that frequency. And so I came back from that experience, and actually when I had that thought of like, I should have to breathe, literally I was at the top of the water, and I had so much of a shift in consciousness after that experience. I had a headache for a couple of days. It was so much all at once, but there's so much going on in the oceans. There's ships under there. And so I think that's why they don't want us in the water, not to mention that it shifts our energy with the salt crystals and everything else. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Well, how long were you under? Do you know? You don't know?
I have no idea. It felt like forever. It felt like, it was also like outside of time and space. So there was no concept of any of that. It was just this utter bliss. It was incredible. I haven't had that happen to me again, but I know other people where it's happened to, and they've ended up in these ships. Yeah.
What does Sarah Jane say here? I believe sharks are telling us to let go of fear, and we hold on to. Absolutely. Indigo says, wow. I had Sue Walker on the show a few years ago, a few years ago. Do you know who Sue Walker is? So
I don't.
she lives in the mountains, and she's telepathically connected to her and her partner, whose name escapes me, to a group of ETs called the Ponti. They call themselves the Ponti, which are humanoid grey looking ETs, not very short, but not very tall either. They have sort of more human faces and many greys. And they have been on the planet for thousands of years. They live for hundreds of years. And she asked them, what are you doing here? And they said, your oceans. We are just mad about your oceans. Your oceans are the most incredible environment of any planet in the galaxy. And there are so many beings that come to Earth to study your oceans. And I thought that was, really interesting. The Ponti are actually all over. They have bases in mountains, and they've kept themselves obviously secret, except for people like Sue who can telepathically communicate with them. But since Sue has been talking about them, many other people are connected to the Ponti, and they're seen all over the place. People have had evidence of them, like handprints, and they move things around, but they're still not exactly standing, out there at supermarkets in their physical form for everyone to see yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. But they've been here longer than humans have. Yeah. Like than this current form of humans, I would say. But probably before even Lemuria or Atlantis, they were here just studying our oceans. Yeah. Amazing.
Wow, that's fascinating. Yeah, no, because it also reminds me of like the dragon energy that moves around all through the earth and the ley lines, and how they're the masters of, all the elements is how I see them, and they feel the primal.
There's a question here from Sun. Do you think those ships are man-made or otherworldly? I suppose she's talking about the ships that you saw under the ocean. What's your
I've seen mostly or what I do is I usually feel the plasma ships when they're there. I can feel when they come in and out. You can feel the different portals. I mean, they're all over the planet. But I've also seen man-made ones go in and out of the water, or like different cigar-based ones that feel more man-made. I know Joan tells a great story in her movie, all about how a huge ship showed up when she was out on Silverbank in the Dominican Republic, and how the crew saw it and came banging on all their doors and got them all outside. And she said literally there was this ginormous spaceship, miles long, and they connected in telepathically with the ship. And they said, oh, we're here to talk to the whales. We're downloading the new codes. And then the humpback whales would sing them into the ocean. And so, they're everywhere. I mean, and she even talked about how many people could see it. And then she said there was one gentleman that just couldn't take it in. And he kept going around interviewing everybody. And he's like, well, it's not an asteroid that fell out of the sky. It's not a plane. It's not a bird, I mean, it was like he didn't have the reference point to say, yeah, that's a spaceship from another galaxy, because there's just, they're everywhere. When you really want to tune into them, you'll start to see them.
Yeah, absolutely. They're everywhere. Talking about other planets, I remember years ago, probably around the same time I first heard about Joan Ocean, like in the 90s, I think it would have been. Anyway, time. I have no concept of time. The 90s feel like yesterday, and yesterday feels like a million years ago. Like time is so warped.
It's weird right now.
At some point, I heard about Drumvalo Melchizedek. He might have even came out to Australia. But I remember watching a video of him talking about coming to planet Earth. And he said he was coming to planet Earth for the first time. And before he came here, he wanted to know what happens on planet Earth. And so his consciousness as an energy orb went to Sirius, planet in Sirius B, which is the ocean planet where a lot of the whales and dolphins, well, I don't know if they come from, but they inhabit this planet, and they're telepathically connected to the whales and dolphins here on Earth, and that their astral form can move in between the planets. They can be there and here together simultaneously. They can move, they're multidimensional. But he said that as an energy orb, he hung out by the eye of a whale, and he saw what she saw, and he saw planet Earth through her eyes because she was also in a whale's body on planet Earth. So he was looking in the oceans, but he had no idea what planet Earth was all about, and he got a bit of a glimpse into planet Earth through the eye of a whale on Sirius B. I've never forgotten that story. I don't know if I've got all the details correct, because I think it was about 35 years ago that I remember watching that film about Drumvilla talking about coming to planet Earth. Yeah, just hanging out by the eye of a dolphin as an energy orb and seeing what she sees. Yeah, amazing, huh?
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Just beautiful. I love that.
So let's hear about, what have we got? We've got about 15 minutes left or so. What have been some of your experiences hanging out either with your consciousness or physically with your whale and dolphin comrades, family, friends?
Let's see. Oh, that's a rich question. I love having, I always am asking my guides for, like, show me, you know, out of this world kinds of experiences.
Yeah.
You know, because then that opens my consciousness up more. And what I try to realize, you know, for myself is how can I stay open and curious? Because when I decide that that's it, that's what, I don't know, maybe you've had this experience, Karen, like, okay, that's my truth. Okay, no, that's my truth. Oh no, that's my truth. It's like the more that we raise our frequencies, and that's what's happening right now. The whole planet's raising their frequencies and we're raising our frequencies. It's like what was true then doesn't resonate anymore, you know? And so it's like a different level of truth. And I know that the Palladians are usually telling me those kinds of things like, Hydee, there are no absolute truths. It all depends on your perspective. And, you know, so, yeah, I'm always just kind of curious about some of those things, but I can share, I mean, I shared a little bit about some of the interesting things that's happened to me with the dolphins and whales. That's one of them. I mean, they're incredibly telepathic. Let's see. One of the recent experiences I had was in Bimini, and I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's down off of Florida and in the Bahamas. And when you're there, you can feel it's almost like you enter a different dimension when you go to Bimini. It's this multi-dimensional, like you can feel like the jelly, like when you go through, it's like the when you go into that space that Bimini is. And there's ways that it's reminding us in so many different levels. And one of the experiences that we had was where we were on this boat. We were on a catamaran, and there's about 20 of us, and we were going out. We had just finished snorkeling. We were going out to look for the bottlenose or the spotteds. And as we look around, it's like everything just doesn't feel real. It really feels like we're in this like simulation, for lack of a better word, or in this hologram. And some of the people on our group also, you know, were saying the same thing. Like, do you feel that? But Karen, it was like this sense of stillness, like the stillness that, like, we didn't even know how to describe it. And as we kept going out, we ended up finding this pod of spotted dolphins. And we found a bunch of the elders who have lots and lots and lots of spots. And when we were, when we found them, they started just coming to the bow of the boat and then swimming along with us, but they slowed down. They slowed down and slowed down. And we're just kind of mimicking their energy. And the whole group got really still to the point where the spotteds just kind of surrounded the boat, and we got in with them. And when we did, they went vertical and just were in the stillest place that words don't ever describe exactly the experience, but It was like each of us just felt, we just surrounded them in a circle, you know, and they would just stay vertical like that. And I don't know, it was almost like they're just reminding us to continue to, the more we go into our heart, go within, you find that still place where there's just no words. I feel like, you know, it's like we tend to get up in our minds and think all these different things, but it's our multidimensional heart and connecting that back in that I feel like they're showing us, and that's what they were showing us. So yeah, I don't know. That was an incredible experience, and people just, yeah, I'm curious how that opens them. We're just more open and curious. Like I said, I don't want to put anything in a box or put any labels on it. Just because I feel like it's expanding. Things are expanding so much. That level. I don't know. I remember a friend of mine had said, I had asked him, he was a healer, and I was like, what do? You do Reiki. It looks like you do Reiki and you do this and this and this. And he's like, Heidi, I honestly, I don't want to call it Reiki or anything else. I don't know. I just run energy, and this is, I don't know. I don't have any words to call it. And he said, I feel like when I do that, I put things in a box and then it has to conform to that. And then there's no expansion. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's huge right there. Because what do we want to do? We want to label things. We want to put things in boxes. This is how it is, and yeah. So that's, anyway, I can go on with other experiences, but I'll give some
Sounds
space
like
there.
dolphin meditation teachers. Who's your meditation teacher?
Yeah.
Another dolphin.
Yeah. Wow. That's exactly it. Yeah. And it was almost like there was this grandmother elder who came to each person in the group. And there was one lady that hadn't gotten in, and she finally got in at the end. She was a little scared of the water, and she was actually on a noodle floating. And that dolphin, that elder grandmother, she came right over to her and did some sonar. And I mean, this woman was in tears because she was like, oh my gosh, that was so deliberate. You wanted to make sure that everybody, had the same experiences and that same opening. So yeah. And it feels like, like they go back to where they live and all their different places. And then they're radiating that joy and that love and that bliss, out to all the people, just holding that frequency that they've just been gifted,
Yeah. I know humans think that we're the most intelligent life forms on the planet, but we are not.
No,
we are not. But there are, like the whales and the dolphins,
right.
Although their lives might look simple, are much more intelligent. Maybe that's what intelligence is. The simpler, the more intelligent. Like, don't complicate things. Don't complicate things. Yeah,
Yes.
they're much more intelligent than us.
I think you're right on with that, because it is. It's like, I've always loved simplicity, and I feel like that's what it is we complicate so many things. But Mother Nature isn't complicated. It's just, it is, and it loves, and the trees and the bees and the birds and, everything, the animals, and they're all saying the same thing. I mean, I'm a beekeeper as well. And it's like, I hear the same messages from the bees that the dolphins and whales are saying. So, and you can listen to the whales, the humpback whales, like some of those sounds that you played, they sound like the elephants. And to me, it's like the elephants are doing the same thing on land. They're changing different vibrations,
Yeah, they
It's
understand.
Powerful, so conscious. Mm-hmm.
They understand sound in ways that we don't understand. They understand energy in ways that humans don't understand.
Absolutely.
Indigo says absolutely. And she says that, I think Indigo's a she. I've been thinking about how limiting and dividing it is when we label things today. There's the synchronicity. Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say that, like, I call my guides very irreverently the mob, because to put a name on it is to limit them. And so my experience of my guides when I was trying to understand who was communicating with me when I was young was, they showed me, and they're not a mob. That's again a human perspective. But it is a stream of consciousness, a stream of intelligence that we can all tap into, but we need to give them identity and names and labels. And when we do, we limit the magic of it. Yeah. So
that's it. Whew.
Maybe their sonar, the way that they communicate through sound, it just keeps them, they're not communicating through words and language like we are. We're limiting our perceptual experience through our language, and they are not. They are not, because they're using these sounds which are expansive.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you probably feel, Karen, like when you get a telepathic message, you get it all at once. And then it's like you've got to sit there and like decode all the things in it. Yeah, that's exactly it. Like you get the whole package all at once,
Yeah, it's going to be amazing when we are probably beyond our physical lifetimes, but I'm sure I'll be back for more fun on planet Earth. People say, get me out of here. I don't want to come back. And I'm like, are you kidding? With the expansion in consciousness and what we're moving into, why wouldn't you want to come back and see what all of the light workers and volunteers and indigos and whatever you want to call yourself, starseeds, have been doing to to bring in this new age of expansion in consciousness, wouldn't you want to come back and see how that looks on planet Earth? I can't wait to see. But when we move into telepathic societies, communication will be so much more potent than the way we communicate now through language. It's a really
Absolutely.
slow way of communicating.
Absolutely. Yeah. My whole body is like got the chills. It's like I could feel the truth of everything that you're saying. And yeah, I don't know. I keep thinking of your daughter that you mentioned earlier and that we talked about, and her going down, and being with the dolphins and the whales and the sharks and everything. And then also being a paramedic and doing the whole, more allopathic type of medicine. And my whole shifting of going down that place, and how, she's shining that light. She's holding that space of the dolphins and whales and that consciousness in that space, so that more and more people can awaken and hold that consciousness as well. And it's like, I don't think, I have kids that are, in their 20s now too. And it's, they don't fit, they're trying to fit into a system that's dying, that's falling away. And it's like, they don't know what they're creating, and it's like, I always remember Joseph Campbell and him saying, just follow your bliss, follow your heart. That's the whole way that we can navigate. And it's like, that's what Mother Nature is really saying is, come on, humans, come back in, get back in your heart space and let your heart guide you. I really feel like that's something that you just shared with the telepathic and all of our superpowers that, we have. It's just they've laid dormant, right? Because we don't believe that we can do certain things. So
yeah, exactly. We started this conversation talking about death, and I want to finish it because you've got another book called Death as a Doorway. And I'm going to read what the excerpt it says on Amazon here is a simple yet deep exploration of death and a transition into other realms and reality systems. There are so many unknowns around death and dying. Why don't we celebrate death and as a move into a higher, more powerful dimension of existence? Are we just in a reality system? And when we die, we go to heaven, hell, purgatory, back to nothingness, or other reality systems, question marks. I think we can do all of that. Like, we can go anywhere, right? Perhaps there is so much more to the bigger cosmos when we initiate. And because just recently my daughter has had experience with death. She lives on a farm with no fences, and these dogs came on the farm and attacked the wild geese. Actually, they weren't wild. She thought they were wild, but they actually belonged to a neighbor, and killed a couple of them, mauled many of them and killed a couple. But she was sitting on the grass with these two dying geese, and upset, and she was FaceTiming me, and I was watching them. And she seems to have a lot of lessons around death. Like, death is such a great teacher. They were wounded, they were mauled by this dog, but I can't say they weren't suffering. But again, coming back to the way animals experience death, I was asking her to talk to the consciousness of the geese and say, well, if you're finished with this lifetime, it's okay for you to go. You can go, because she didn't want to put them down. She ended up taking to the vet, and the vet ended up putting them down. But they were happy to stay and just hang out with her, just lying on the grass. What do you want to say about death before we go, as a doorway into higher consciousness?
Yeah, that's such a great lead in, Karen, about your daughter, because what I notice is many of us that are on Earth is we get so sucked into that. I am this human body. I am Hydee. I am this person, and I have whatever 2.5 kids, married, this blah blah blah, all these different things, and that's our ego self that gets sucked into this Earth reality, and we don't often connect into that multidimensionality, that this is just an aspect of who we are experiencing, the human lifetime. And I've had many questions around death myself, and being, like I shared that experience when I was 10, and just kind of knowing that, wow, there really is no death, and this is just an experience that I'm having. And then being around a lot of death in the fire department, from traffic accidents to fires, and being a paramedic as well. It wasn't until I really started to tune in that, oh my gosh, you just stepped out of your body, you know, and then having those communications with them of like, you know, and usually most of them were, because it was usually an accident of some sort, they were, you know, a little bit frazzled and like, where am I and what am I doing? And having those telepathic conversations of, you know, you could come back in your body if that's what you're choosing, or, you know, what your next, you know, steps are, or you can look around for your guides and go and follow that kind of a thing. So, I don't know. I was always more curious on like, where do you want to go next? What, like, this is just an experience, and death is literally just a doorway, and to know and let that larger part of yourself really guide you and let you know you're going to be okay. This is just a, you know, an avatar body, an aspect of your soul that's choosing this experience. And what a rich, rich, rich experience on this multi-dimensional earth right now. And where are you going to go next, and where else are you having different experiences? Because we don't just have it, you know, you may be having another experience in a different civilization on a different planet, or even here at the same time on Earth. So it's just so rich, and I know we could go dive deep into that conversation.
And I think animals understand.
So
yeah, we're running out of time. We've got 4 minutes. So animals understand the reincarnation cycle because they have really short lives. Like insects live for sometimes hours, sometimes days, sometimes a week. And so they're coming and going all the time. And the positive outcome with the dying geese was that we were both sending them energy, and she had her hands on one geese that was more mauled than the other one, and sending it love and energy. They died. At the end of their life experience was with that energy of love from humans, a couple of me on FaceTime and her in real time. And so I'm thinking, when they do incarnate back into another goose body, maybe next week, maybe they're already back, who knows, because they come and go. They just get it. They're here and they're not, they're here and not, and they're here. My cat's been with me in 3 different cat bodies, same consciousness. That having that interaction with her at the end of their life maybe really evolved their souls for their next incarnation, or that, you know, that connection to the human world in different ways. Because she said that, you know, geese are pretty unfriendly, that they're not, you're not going to walk up to a goose and pat it, wild geese especially. Maybe coming back, they'll have more of a connection to the human family. So that's something that's happening across the planet. On Instagram, we see all these animals interacting with humans in different ways than ever before. We're really becoming more connected, both in our oceans and on land as well. All right, darling one, anything else you want to say before we go? We've got a couple of minutes.
Oh, let's see. You know, I'll just say that Joan Ocean's movie is out online, and you can see it at joanoceanfilm.com. There's lots of information out there. We have a Hawaii premiere coming up here in September, and Joan Ocean's going to come and do a Q&A out there. So, getting lots of information for, you know, from a pioneer, really, that she is, in getting all of her just knowledge and wisdom, and you know, from either the movie or the things that she shared. And she's got great books. John Luc Bozzoli as well. I mean, he's got his artwork and movies, and it can take you right into this whole other multidimensional world, right? So, and then Lisa Denning at lisadenning.com, she's got great photos and videos that she's been working with as well. So, and come join us on a retreat if you feel like that. We have them in Hawaii.
Absolutely. And do you want to give a plug? You sent me that video of a conversation that you and Lisa had on YouTube. Just give that.
Sure. Yeah, we just put out an interview with Heather Ainsworth, she's got a YouTube channel as well. And so we went and deep dove into the dolphin and whale consciousness as well, and talked about Joan, and it was Lisa's on there as well. So it's fun to experience that.
Darling one, you'll have to come down under and go swimming with the
whales. Love
and the dolphins. And my
never been to Australia.
You'll have to come on down.
I would love to meet your daughter.
Thank you, darling one. It's been just
thank
beautiful. It went so quickly. This is like so close. Everything we talked about so close to my heart, especially the whales and the dolphins. And thanks everybody for listening and tuning in, and for all your great comments and questions. You are a blessing. We love you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Couple of minutes to go. Big love to all of you. Catch you next time. Bye for now.